It was 3 a.m. on a Wednesday. I just finished a brutal 40-hour rotation at County General. My scrub still smelled like disinfectant and exhaustion. The house was dark when I got home. That colonial-style house in Westchester, with its perfect lawn and its suffocating silence. He was waiting for me in the den. My father, Dr. Raymond Cooper, sitting in his leather chair like a judge. His reading glasses perched on his nose. He wasn't reading. He was holding my laptop. My sketchbook was open beside him. "I went through your things," he said. His voice was low, controlled. The voice he used right before he delivered devastating news to a patient's family. "This ends now, Maria." I stood there, frozen. My feet were swollen in my sneakers. My eyes burned from lack of sleep. I'd been awake for almost 2 days straight, and now this. He held up my laptop, showing the digital painting I'd been working on for months. A sprawling, abstract piece that combined medical imagery with street art aesthetics. It was raw. It was mine. It was everything I couldn't say out loud in that house. "You're going to throw away everything we've built." His face was stone. "A medical degree. A future. For this." He practically spat the word. "For these pathetic doodles." I opened my mouth to explain. To defend myself. To tell him that art wasn't just a hobby for me, it was oxygen. But he wasn't done. He stood up, his 6'2" frame towering over me. "You are a disgrace to this family. Your mother and I have sacrificed everything. We paid for your education. We opened doors. And this is how you repay us." My mother, Patricia, appeared in the doorway. She was wearing her silk robe, her face a mask of disappointed propriety. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. Her expression said it all. "What will the neighbors think? Dad, if you just let me explain." "Get out." His voice exploded through the room. "Get out and stay out. If you want to waste your life playing artist, you can do it somewhere else. Not under my roof. Not with my name." I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just turned around, walked up the stairs to my childhood bedroom, and packed a duffel bag. One bag. That's all I took from 25 years of life in that house. As I walked past the den, I saw them standing there together. My father's arm around my mother's shoulder. My older sister, Natalie, had appeared on the stairs, watching with cold, satisfied eyes. The golden child. The perfect daughter who'd followed every rule. I walked out the front door at 4:30 a.m. The streetlights were still on. The neighborhood was silent. As I stood on that perfect sidewalk, looking back at that perfect house, I realized something. It had never been a home. It had been a museum. A shrine to the Cooper family legacy. And I was finally free of it. Have you ever been told your dreams were worthless? That your passion was a waste of time? Let me know your story in the comments. I read every single one. Growing up in the Cooper household wasn't childhood. It was training. My father, Dr. Raymond Cooper, was the chief of cardiology at one of the top hospitals in New York. My mother, Patricia, ran the hospital foundation and sat on every important charity board in Westchester County. And my sister, Natalie, was the prototype. The perfect medical student who lived and breathed emergency medicine like it was her purpose. Then there was me, the younger daughter. The one who saw patterns and colors, not just symptoms and solutions. Our family dinners were interrogations. We'd sit at that massive oak table, the one that had been in the Cooper family for 3 generations, and my father would quiz us. "Natalie," he'd say, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "Patient presents with crushing chest pain radiating to the left arm. What's your protocol?" Natalie would sit up straighter, her eyes bright. "First, rule out acute coronary syndrome. Get an EKG, cardiac enzymes, chest X-ray. Start aspirin, nitroglycerine if blood pressure allows. Call cardiology for possible catheterization." She was perfect. She was everything he wanted. Then his eyes would turn to me. "Maria, your biochemistry exam. 91. "Yes, sir." 91 is not acceptable. 91 means you missed questions you should have known. The Coopers don't settle for good enough. We expect excellence. My mother would smile tightly and refill the water glasses. Her entire existence was about maintaining appearances. Her favorite phrase, whispered behind closed doors, haunted my entire childhood. Maria, what will people think? I was the family's biggest disappointment. The one who, at 14, had taken a graphic design class and created a digital collage that won a local art contest. I brought home the certificate, so proud, thinking they'd finally see me. My father glanced at it for exactly 3 seconds. "Cute," he said. "Now go study for your chemistry test." I hid the certificate in my desk drawer. It stayed there for 11 years. The day I got my white coat at the medical school ceremony should have been the proudest moment of my life. My father took the photo, his hand heavy on my shoulder. I smiled for the camera, but all I could feel was the weight of that coat. It wasn't a symbol of achievement. It was a uniform. A costume I was wearing in a play I never auditioned for. I couldn't articulate it then, but our family operated on a transactional model. Love wasn't given freely. It was earned through performance, through grades, through prestige, through carrying the Cooper name forward like it was a torch we were obligated to keep burning. For years, I tried to earn a love that was never actually available. I studied until my eyes bled. I memorized every muscle, every bone, every biochemical pathway. I thought if I just worked hard enough, if I just proved myself enough, they'd see me. Really see me. But that night, the night my father found my art, I finally understood. He wasn't angry that I was failing myself. He was furious that I was failing him. I wasn't his daughter. I was his investment. And I was defaulting on the loan. So when he told me to get out, I didn't fight. I left. I was 25 years old, disowned, with $8,000 in savings and a duffel bag that smelled like hospital antiseptic. The first thing I did was walk to a dumpster behind a gas station and throw away my white coat. I watched it disappear under a pile of trash bags and fast food wrappers. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe. I found a studio apartment in a rough neighborhood in the Bronx. The kind of place where sirens were the soundtrack of your life, and the walls were so thin you could hear your neighbor's phone conversations. The rent was $900 a month, which felt astronomical on my new income. Because I got a job. At a coffee shop. Brewing lattes and cleaning espresso machines for $9 an hour plus. Tips. The irony wasn't lost on me. All those years of brutal academic pressure, all those sleepless nights studying, all that family prestige. And here I was, wearing a green apron and asking people if they wanted room for cream. This was my rock bottom phase. My what have I done? Phase. But the nights. The nights were when I came alive. I bought a used laptop with my first paycheck. It wasn't fancy, but it worked. And I didn't sleep. I worked. I poured everything. The rage, the grief, the humiliation, the 25 years of being invisible, into my art. I created massive digital pieces. Collages that combined medical imagery with street art. Abstract paintings that felt like they were breathing. Designs that were beautiful and broken all at once, just like me. I was completely alone. Creating in a void. Until I posted one of my pieces on an online art collective forum. Just threw it out there, expecting nothing. A message popped up within an hour. This isn't just art. This is a revolution. His name was Luis Moreno. He was 28, running the collective from a tiny apartment in Los Angeles. He was a photographer and digital artist who'd been fighting the same battles I had. He didn't see my work as a hobby. He saw it as genius. We started talking. Hours turned into days, turned into weeks. He became my closest friend. My collaborator. The first person who looked at my work and didn't ask, "But what's your real job?" 3 months into our friendship, Luis sent me a link. "Maria, you need to see this." It was a grant. The Holloway Foundation for Emerging Artists. A new fund specifically for digital creators. The prize was $850,000. "You have to apply," Luis said over our video call. His face was serious. "This isn't just money. This is validation. This is everything we've been fighting for." I almost didn't do it. The imposter syndrome was crushing. Who was I to apply for something like this? I was a failed medical student serving coffee in the Bronx. But Luis wouldn't let me quit. He helped me put together my portfolio. We spent 2 weeks refining every piece, writing the artist's statement, making it perfect. I hit submit at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. Then I went back to work, expecting absolutely nothing. 7 weeks later, I was making a cappuccino for a regular customer when my phone buzzed. An email from the Holloway Foundation. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open it. Dear Ms. Cooper, we are pleased to inform you. I'd won $850,000. I stood there in that coffee shop, covered in milk foam and espresso stains, and I started crying. Not sad crying. The kind of crying that comes when your entire world shifts on its axis, and you realize everything is about to change. We didn't waste a single dollar. Louis flew to New York the day after I got the news. We sat in my tiny studio apartment, laptop between us, and we planned. We weren't just going to make art. We were going to build a platform. A space where digital artists could showcase their work in immersive, interactive galleries. Where they could actually get paid for their creativity. Where art wasn't just something you did on the side, it was your life. We called it Canvas Collective. We poured everything into it. The grant money went toward developers, designers, server costs, marketing. Louis moved to New York. We worked 18-hour days, living on Chinese takeout and cold pizza and pure adrenaline. We launched on a Friday night at midnight. By Saturday morning, our servers had crashed. We had over 2 million visitors in the first 48 hours. The art world, which had ignored digital work for decades, suddenly couldn't look away. People were creating. They were selling. They were building careers. And we were at the center of it all. That's when the emails started coming in. Galleries. Museums. Investors. Everyone wanted a piece of what we'd built. But one email stood out. It came from a firm called Pinnacle Arts Group, based in London. They weren't just interested in the platform. They were interested in acquiring it. And they wanted to acquire my entire debut collection, the 20 pieces I'd created during those lonely nights in the Bronx. The negotiations took 8 months. 8 months of lawyers and contracts and international phone calls at 2 a.m. Louis, and I held firm on our terms. We weren't going to sell out. We were going to make sure the platform stayed true to its mission. Finally, on a cold December morning, they sent the final offer. $27 million. I stared at the number on my screen. It didn't feel real. It was just digits. Just numbers. I didn't pop champagne. I didn't celebrate. I sat in my studio apartment, looking at the water-stained ceiling, and I felt nothing. Just numb. Louis called me. Maria, do you understand what this means? We did it. You did it. Yeah, I said quietly. We did it. But I didn't buy champagne. I didn't throw a party. I bought a one-way plane ticket. I was leaving New York. I was leaving the cold, the grey, the memories of everything I'd lost and fought for. I was flying towards something new. I flew to Santa Fe, New Mexico. I'd always been drawn to the desert. The warmth. The endless sky. The way the earth there felt alive and ancient and forgiving. I found a property online. It was nothing like the colonial house I'd grown up in. It was a sprawling adobe estate that seemed to grow organically from the red earth, perched on the edge of a canyon with views that went on forever. I paid $24 million for it. Cash. The centerpiece of the house wasn't a formal dining room or a grand entryway. It was a studio. A massive, warehouse-sized space with floor-to-ceiling windows that captured the entire desert panorama. Natural light poured in like liquid gold. The day the sale closed, I walked into that empty house alone. My footsteps echoed on the stone floors. I stood in my studio, in this $24 million palace I'd bought with money I'd earned from art my father called garbage, and I felt absolutely nothing. Just cold, hollow fraud. This is the hidden pain of winning. The moment you get everything you thought you wanted, and you're terrified you don't deserve it. I stood in that perfect, empty house, looking out at the perfect, endless horizon, and all I could think was, my father saves lives. He's a surgeon. He holds beating hearts in his hands. And I just make pretty pictures. The guilt was suffocating. I'd run away. I'd played with my pathetic doodles and stumbled into a fortune I didn't earn. I was an imposter in my own life. A fraud living in a house I had no right to own. The imposter syndrome could have destroyed me, but the work was too demanding for that. The acquisition was finalized, and I spent the next 6 months in a blur. I wasn't just an artist anymore. I was the creative director of Canvas Collective's Innovation Lab. I was working with Lewis and the London team to expand the platform internationally. I was busy. I was focused. And for the first time in my life, I was working on something that felt authentic. I was working so hard, in fact, that I almost missed the email. It came from a journalist at Art Forum, the most prestigious contemporary art magazine in the world. They wanted to do a feature on me. The article came out 3 weeks later. The cover was a minimalist shot of my studio, the desert glowing gold in the background. The headline read, "The $27 million Maverick, How Maria Cooper, a medical school dropout, became digital art's brightest star." It was a flattering piece. Mostly. It detailed my dramatic exit from the prestigious Cooper medical dynasty and my meteoric rise in the art world. It included glossy photos of my Santa Fe estate, the studio, the infinity pool, the canyon views, the open concept living spaces. I read it once, felt a strange sense of accomplishment, and went back to work. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. New York area code. I almost didn't answer. I hadn't spoken to anyone from that life in over a year. But curiosity made me hit accept. "Hello?" "Hey, sis. Long time, huh?" "Natalie." Her voice was smooth, calculated. The voice she used when she wanted something from a patient's family member. "What do you want, Natalie?" "Whoa, straight to business. I'm just calling to say hi. Saw that Art Forum article. Very impressive. And wow, that house. That's really something." My stomach dropped. Ice flooded my veins. There it was. "Mom and Dad saw it too," she continued. Her voice was casual, but I could hear the edge underneath. "We've all been talking. It's been way too long, Maria. We were thinking we should all come visit. Maybe this weekend? You know, reconnect. See what you've been up to." Reconnect. The word hung in the air like poison. This wasn't reconciliation. This was an invasion. They hadn't called when I was disowned. They hadn't checked if I was alive when I was serving coffee in the Bronx. But now the medical school dropout had a $24 million house and a net worth of $27 million. And suddenly, they wanted to reconnect. This was the twist. The deep, cutting revelation. The first twist was the money. The second twist was this. Their love was transactional. Always had been. The Art Forum article was the first invoice they'd received showing I was worth investing in again. I felt cold, sharp clarity wash over me. "Fine," I said. My voice was flat. "Hard. This weekend." I hung up before she could reply. This wasn't a family reunion. This was an audit. And I was finally ready for it. They arrived on Saturday afternoon. A black rental SUV pulled up to my gate, and I watched from the window as they stepped out into the bright desert sun. They looked wrong. Out of place. My father, Dr. Raymond Cooper, in a pressed polo and khakis. My mother, Patricia, in pearls and a designer blouse. Natalie in expensive yoga pants and designer sunglasses, like she'd just come from brunch in Manhattan. They looked like New York. Rigid and cold and grey. Dropped into the warm, earthy colors of New Mexico. I met them at the door. My mother tried to hug me. It was stiff, awkward. I didn't return it. "Maria, sweetheart. You look different." "It's the desert air," I said flatly. They stepped inside and I watched their faces change. The shock. The awe. The calculation. "This is quite a home," my father said slowly. His eyes were scanning everything. The 20-foot ceilings. The wall of glass overlooking the canyon. The original artwork I'd collected from emerging artists. The natural wood and stone and light. It was the opposite of their Westchester colonial. Their house was dark, heavy, formal. Furniture you looked at but never sat on. My house was warm, open, alive. "I'll give you the tour," I said. I walked them through like a realtor. Polite. Detached. Professional. This is the main living area. Kitchen's over there. Guest wing is down that hall. And this. I opened the double doors. This is the studio. They stood in silence. The studio was massive. 50-foot ceilings. Windows on 3 sides. My work in progress was displayed on a bank of monitors, a swirling, massive digital sculpture. This is what you do? Natalie asked. Her voice was tight. This is what I do. Impressive, my father said. But he wasn't looking at the art. He was looking at the size of the space. The value. The square footage. We had lunch on the patio. A local chef had prepared southwestern dishes, green chili chicken enchiladas, calabacitas, fresh tortillas. The food was beautiful. The tension was suffocating. My mother tried to make small talk. This salsa is delicious, Maria. Is it homemade? It's from a restaurant in town. Oh, of course. Natalie pushed her food around her plate. My father stared at his water glass. His jaw was set. Finally, after the plates were cleared, he set down his napkin. He cleared his throat. Maria. He was looking at the mountains, not at me. We didn't just come here to see the house. Here it is, I thought. Your sister. He paused. Natalie's trying to open a private practice. She's taken on significant debt. The loans are substantial. I looked at Natalie. She was staring at her hands. The golden child. The perfect daughter. She wouldn't even meet my eyes. My mother jumped in, her voice artificially bright. We thought, Maria, given your success. She gestured around at my home, at the canyon, at the sky. We thought you could help. An investment, really. To help your sister. To keep the Cooper name strong. There it was. The mask ripped off. They hadn't flown across the country to see their daughter. They'd flown across the country to see their ATM. I felt a strange, cold calm settle over me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't hurt. I wasn't angry. I just saw them clearly. You didn't come here for me, I said quietly. You came here with a bill. I let the silence sit. Let their request hang in the warm desert air. I looked at each of them. My mother, Patricia, twisting her pearls, desperate to maintain the comfortable lie. My sister, Natalie, the golden child, now just a desperate woman staring at her lap. My father, Dr. Raymond Cooper, a man who could hold a human heart in his hands, but had no idea what to do with one emotionally. I felt nothing. No rage. No pain. Just clarity. You didn't come here to reconnect, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut like a scalpel. You came here with a bill. Maria, that's not fair, my mother protested. We're your family. No, I said. It wasn't a shout. It was a statement of fact. No, you're not. My father's head snapped up. He wasn't used to hearing that word. No? No, I repeated. I won't be investing in Natalie's practice. I won't be keeping the Cooper name strong. I'm done with that name. I stood up. They looked small from where I was standing. I spent 25 years desperate for your approval, I told them. I tied myself in knots trying to be good enough. But when you threw me out, you set me free. And I met people who actually care about more than prestige and status. I thought of my mentor, Beverly Chang, the 58-year-old gallery owner who'd taken me under her wing when I first arrived in Santa Fe. Beverly taught me the difference between their world and mine. You, Dad, I said, you live an extractive life. Everything is a transaction. You use medicine for status, for money, for control. You don't see Natalie as your daughter. You see her as an underperforming asset. My father's face went white. Natalie flinched like I'd slapped her. You came here today to extract from me, I continued. But I'm building a generative life. My work builds community. It inspires people. It creates value in the world that didn't exist before. I walked to the edge of the patio, looking out at the canyon. I am making an investment, actually. I just finalized the paperwork yesterday. I'm funding a community art center here in Santa Fe, a place for underserved kids. Kids like I was. Kids who are told their passion is worthless. I'm giving them tools and space and permission to build. I turned back to them. That's my legacy. Not yours. They were silent. Defeated. Finally seeing me not as a daughter, but as a force they'd lost control of. The guest rooms are ready if you want to stay the night, I said. My voice was flat. But I think you should leave. My father stood. For a second, I thought I'd see the old rage. But there was nothing. Just emptiness. He nodded once. Let's go. They left. I didn't watch them drive away. It's been 8 months since that day. My studio isn't empty anymore. It's filled with laughter and chaos and creation. Lewis moved his life here and runs Canvas Collective from the guest house. Beverly comes by for wine on Fridays. On weekends, kids from the art center come over, and we work on collaborative pieces. We make messes. We create. We build. I look at them, at Lewis, at Beverly, at the chosen family I've built, and I feel peace that no amount of money could ever buy. My name is Maria Cooper. I was disowned by my family, but I found my legacy. Not in the prestige they demanded, but in the life I designed for myself. So what's your blueprint? What are you building? Let me know in the comments.